Hi, I'm Blake Lively, and I'm going to be taking the BuzzFeed quiz, which iconic Blake Lively character?
Hi besties, I am Bhaskar Lashari with Corevanta. Today we should discuss about the
Welcome back to your rush hour distraction, folks, your daily dose of caffeine for the brain and chaos for the soul. It's October 7th, a day that means nothing to most of you but everything to me, because my son just hit the 17-month mark. Yeah, 17 months of pure joy, exhaustion, and zero sleep. Parenthood is fun if you enjoy being emotionally drained but somehow happy about it. But hey, who needs sleep when you've got gossip, scandal, and a nation full of stories that make reality TV look like a meditation retreat? Buckle up. We've got a full ride today. We're starting with something so bizarre that even Netflix would reject it for being too unrealistic. The Mark Sanchez story. Yes, that Mark Sanchez, the former New York Jets quarterback turned Fox Sports analyst, the guy who was supposed to spend his post-NFL life in a studio wearing tailored suits and talking about other people's mistakes. Instead, he's now being accused of committing one himself, a big one. Reports say Sanchez is facing felony battery charges after an alleged fight with a truck driver in Indianapolis. You heard that right, from Super Bowls to loading docks. Apparently, the situation escalated faster than a Twitter argument. Here's what we know so far. Prosecutors claim that Sanchez physically attacked a 69-year-old truck driver after an argument about, wait for it, parking. Parking. Of all the possible reasons to throw away a multimillion-dollar career, this man allegedly picked a loading dock turf war. The driver told police that Sanchez approached him while he was working, told him he couldn't park there, and then harassed and attacked him. The victim ended up in the hospital with serious injuries, and when investigators reviewed the evidence, they upgraded Sanchez's charge to a level 5 felony for battery causing serious bodily harm. That's 1 to 6 years behind bars if convicted.
Now, of course, Mark is innocent until proven guilty. That's how the system works, but I gotta say, the optics are rough. This is the kind of story that ends careers overnight. It's not just a scuffle at a bar. This is felony territory. And my question is the same one everyone's asking. What in the world was he thinking? You're worth $40 million. You've got a great gig calling NFL games on Sundays, and you decide to fight a guy who's just doing his job? If that's not career suicide, I don't know what is. And here's where it gets even messy, eh? According to early reports, the victim allegedly had a knife and stabbed Sanchez during the altercation, which sent the former quarterback to the hospital. So was Sanchez defending himself, or did he start it? Was this road rage, ego, or something deeper? I can't help but wonder if this has shades of CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, the degenerative brain condition linked to repeated head injuries in football players. We've seen too many cases where ex-NFL stars spiral into violent outbursts, depression, or self-destructive behavior because their brains are just broken. I'm not excusing him if he's guilty, but it does raise the question, how much does football take before it gives back? Anyway, let's move from one kind of chaos to another, Hollywood chaos. Because while Sanchez might be fighting in parking lots, Blake Lively and Taylor Swift are allegedly fighting over something way pettier, an Instagram-like. That's right. In the year 2025, digital approval still determines the fate of friendships. Reports say that Blake Lively liked Taylor Swift's new Life of a Showgirl album post and then unliked it. Yes, she hit the heart, then took it back. The internet did what it always does, lost its collective mind. Now, before you roll your eyes, this actually matters in Hollywood PR land. Because for months now, there have been whispers that Blake and Taylor's friendship is on thin ice. They were once inseparable. Taylor was literally godmother to Blake's child. But since Blake's ongoing legal war with Justin Baldoni, the co-star she's allegedly been feuding with, things have turned frosty. Rumors say Taylor quietly distanced herself after learning about Blake's behind-the-scenes manipulation and threats tied to that lawsuit. So when Blake suddenly likes Taylor's album post, people thought, oh, they've made up. But then, unlike, boom, digital drama. The People magazine article that broke this story framed it like Blake was showing support for Taylor's new album, like it was a sweet moment between old friends. But hold on, is this genuine support, or is it PR damage control? Remember, Blake has been under fire ever since the Baldoni legal fallout, accused by some insiders of spinning narratives to protect her image. So it's not far-fetched to think that liking Taylor's post might have been a subtle PR move, a reminder to the public that she's still in good graces with one of the most beloved women on earth. But the unlike? That's where it gets interesting. Maybe Taylor didn't reciprocate. Maybe Blake's team decided it looked too forced. Or maybe someone in her circle said, "Hey, don't pretend things are cool when they're not." Either way, fans noticed, and when Swifties notice, the internet goes nuclear. And speaking of Swifties, they've also been dissecting Taylor's new album line by line. The song Would, which, yes, is exactly what you think it's about, has people talking, mostly about her boyfriend, Travis Kelce. Taylor's been writing lyrics that celebrate her man's, natural resources. And let's just say the metaphors are tall, strong, and deeply rooted in national park imagery. Some critics say it's tacky, others say it's empowering, but the truth is, it's Taylor being Taylor. She's in love, she's inspired, and she doesn't care who blushes. Now, not everyone's impressed. Some listeners are calling it cringe, saying Taylor's writing love songs about what now. But look, when you're dating an NFL tight end and you're the biggest pop star on the planet, you've earned the right to brag. Plus, it's kind of refreshing to see her this happy after years of heartbreak albums. Honestly, I say good for her. Let her write odes to whatever she wants. If Blank Space was Heartbreak Taylor, this is Redwood Space Taylor. And for those wondering, yes, her boyfriend's teammates are definitely hearing about it in the locker room. Imagine the jokes. But let's circle back to Blake for a second. Because whether she liked that post out of sincerity or strategy, it's a reminder of how calculated Hollywood friendships can be. We tend to think of these celebrity bonds as genuine, but behind the curtain, it's all timing, optics, and leverage. The truth is, nobody knows if Blake and Taylor still talk. Maybe they text on birthdays. Maybe they silently compete for social clout. Maybe they're just two powerful women who outgrew each other. But fans love a good reunion fantasy, and until we see them photographed together again, that unlike will keep fueling speculation. If you ask me, the real indicator will be Taylor's wedding. Yeah, you heard it here first. Sources close to her camp claim she's planning to marry Travis Kelce in Newport, Rhode Island, next June. And when that day comes, if Blake Lively isn't there, we'll have our answer. You can avoid each other at award shows, skip brunches, unfollow quietly, but a wedding is the ultimate loyalty test. If Blake doesn't make the guest list, the friendship is officially done. Anyway, while everyone's arguing over likes and wedding invites, Hollywood's chaos doesn't stop there. We also had Jennifer Lopez, yes, J.Lo, back in spotlight, doing the Today Show circuit for her new muse. But what did the host do? Ask her about her divorce from Ben Affleck. You've got to admire the audacity. They didn't even warm her up with a "how are you feeling?" They just dove straight in. So, your divorce was finalized, and Ben's still the executive producer of your movie. How awkward is that? To her credit, J.Lo handled it like a pro. She said, "If it wasn't for Ben, this movie wouldn't have been made, and I'll always give him that credit." Very diplomatic, very polished, very J.Lo. But let's be real, working on a film your ex produced right after the breakup, that's a level of professionalism I can't comprehend. Remember her documentary last year, the one about rekindling her romance with Ben after 20 years apart? It dropped right around the time their relationship started collapsing again. The timing was painfully ironic, like watching a romantic montage that ends with a restraining order. Some flames just burn too fast, too hot, and leave too much smoke. Still, I'll say it, I root for love, even if it's messy. I wanted Bennifer 2.0 to work. I wanted them to prove that Hollywood love stories could have second chances. But well, here we are. Now, before you think this show's all doom and gossip, let's sprinkle in a little inspiration. Meet Hog Dale, a regular guy from Iowa who became an overnight sensation. This man started commentating Red Sox games from his basement, just for fun. No fancy studio, no network deal, just passion, humor, and a cheap mic. Then Barstool Sports noticed him. They flew him to Boston to call an actual MLB game, and next thing you know, He's now covering Patriots games, too. That's the kind of story that proves anyone with talent and consistency can find their niche online. He's not a celebrity. He's not polished, but he's real. He cares. He loves what he does. And the internet loves passion. If you ever needed proof that your weird hobby could turn into a career, this is it. There are guys who make six figures reviewing sandwiches or reacting to trains passing by. There's no limit to what can go viral if you bring authenticity. Hogdale's living proof. Meanwhile, back on Planet Chaos, we've got tragedy unfolding on Mount Everest. Nearly 1,000 people trapped on the mountain during a sudden blizzard. Rescue teams are racing against time, fighting freezing temperatures and brutal conditions. And while some have been saved, many are still stranded. It's heartbreaking, but also it sparks this weird social debate. Because climbing Everest isn't exactly a survival necessity. It's a privilege. It costs tens of thousands of dollars, and it's often fueled by ego or bucket list dreams. So, while some people feel sympathy, others quietly roll their eyes and say, well, you knew the risks. But the Sherpas, the local guides risking their lives to save others, those are the real heroes. Every rescue operation on that mountain is a mix of human courage and tragedy. So yeah, from football felonies to friendship fractures to frozen climbers, today's world feels like one big, messy script. But that's the beauty of it, right? Every headline tells a story. Every like or unlike hides an emotion, and every fall from grace teaches us something about ego, fame, and how fragile success really is. Now here's where the plot thickens, like a Hollywood smoothie made of denial, PR tactics, and a splash of betrayal. Fans noticed something strange about Blake Lively's so-called support for Taylor Swift. The timing was too perfect, too polished, like someone had pressed the damage control button in a studio full of publicists. When Taylor dropped her new project and people expected Blake to flood Instagram with supportive posts, she didn't. Nothing. Not a like, not a repost, not even a cute emoji. And when people started whispering about it, those whispers turned into trending hashtags, because in 2025, silence is louder than a scandal. Then, just as fans began asking questions, Blake suddenly reappears with a polished caption that felt more like a press release than a friend's excitement. Something was off. The warmth was gone, replaced with generic phrases, like someone from her PR team wrote it just to check the best friend support box. It wasn't just about the post. It was about the pattern. Blake's moves were calculated, and Taylor's fans saw through it. Remember how every time Taylor had a win, Blake used to be front and center with her? Backstage pictures, inside jokes, red carpet appearances, it was all part of that power friendship dynamic that Hollywood loves to romanticize. But now, it's like Blake was keeping her distance, smiling for cameras when necessary, but avoiding any real public alignment. People began connecting dots. Her sudden collaborations, her carefully timed interviews, her subtle avoidance of Taylor-related questions. It looked like she was trying to stay neutral, but the more she tried, the guiltier it looked. Neutrality doesn't exist in Hollywood drama. It's either alliance or betrayal, and fans can smell PR manipulation a mile away. Then came the missing evidence part that had everyone talking. A few fan accounts noticed that certain posts, those old heartfelt ones Blake made for Taylor, had quietly vanished. Maybe archived, maybe deleted. Whatever it was, the timing was suspicious. Right after a few tabloids hinted that the Swift camp wasn't happy with Blake's latest business deal, suddenly, the online footprints of their friendship began fading. It was like watching a ghost slowly erase its existence. No one said anything publicly, but the silence spoke volumes. And when some fans confronted Blake's fan pages about it, the responses were vague: social media cleanup, rebranding, nothing personal. Yeah, sure. Hollywood people always call it rebranding when they're actually trying to rewrite history. Meanwhile, Taylor, ever the strategist, did what she always does: turn the noise into narrative. She didn't call out Blake, didn't make a scene, didn't unfollow anyone. She simply shifted her tone. Her next public appearance was radiant, yet distant. Every move screamed composure. Every lyric in her unreleased snippets suddenly felt heavier, as if she was saying, I see the games, but I won't play them. That's Taylor's secret weapon, turning betrayal into art. And that's why fans love her. Because when others play politics, she plays symphonies. But Blake? She underestimated how sharp the internet is. Fans don't just notice, they investigate. They started pulling old interviews, comparing timestamps, decoding captions like FBI analysts. One thread on Reddit gained thousands of upvotes overnight, claiming that Blake's PR team had purposely scrubbed certain traces to align her with new brand deals that didn't want her tied too closely to Taylor's polarizing fan base. Whether true or not, it looked believable. That's how perception works in Hollywood. The optics matter more than reality. If it looks fake, it is fake. And in a world built on image, losing the trust of the internet, losing oxygen. Then there's the Ryan Reynolds factor. He's been playing it cool, but fans noticed he wasn't exactly amplifying Taylor-related stuff either. Remember, Ryan's always had that smirk, that jokey persona, but behind the scenes, he's one of the most calculated PR players in the industry. If Blake was adjusting her public stance, Ryan was definitely in on the strategy. Suddenly, people recalled how he and Taylor used to share inside jokes online. Tweets, shout-outs, birthday posts. And now, radio silence. Not even a swift lyric reference. Fans speculated it was coordinated, a quiet distancing campaign. Because let's face it, Hollywood relationships often double as PR contracts, and when one brand's narrative shifts, the other recalibrates. But what makes this whole saga deliciously ironic is that Blake built her relatable image partly through her friendship with Taylor, the girl next door who also happens to be besties with the world's biggest pop star. That was gold for her brand. It gave her relevance beyond acting, turned her into a lifestyle icon. But when things got politically or publicly sensitive in Taylor's orbit, Blake started fading into the background. People noticed how she'd resurface only when the attention could benefit her. New movie, new campaign, new cover. And every time, she sprinkled in just enough Taylor-related buzz to make it look genuine, without committing to any real loyalty. Some insiders even hinted that there were creative differences behind the scenes, a vague term Hollywood uses when friendships start turning into power struggles. Taylor's new documentary reportedly had moments that reference betrayal, and Blake was said to be uncomfortable with being indirectly associated with those themes. It's classic celebrity chess. Every move is intentional, every silence strategic. But here's the kicker. When Blake tried to play it cool, she ended up looking colder than she intended. And in the court of public opinion, perception is like guilt. The missing evidence theory turned viral when a few fans found screenshots of posts that no longer existed on Blake's feed. Suddenly, threads with titles like, "Why did Blake delete Taylor's birthday post?" or "Blake's PR team is rewriting her image" began trending. Her team tried to downplay it by saying her account was undergoing archiving updates due to brand consistency, which, let's be real, is just PR code for we're erasing inconvenient history. The internet doesn't buy that. Fans keep receipts, and those receipts started spreading like wildfire. Taylor's fans didn't even need to attack. They just asked questions. Subtle, smart, and devastating. Why would Blake need to delete those posts now? Why does every supportive caption sound like a corporate memo? The narrative wrote itself. And what's worse, every attempt Blake's team made to clarify things only made it look more suspicious. Because that's how scandals work. The cover-up looks worse than the crime. By this point, the fandoms had split. Some defended Blake, saying she was simply growing apart from Taylor in a natural way. Others argued that Blake had betrayed the friendship by prioritizing her image over loyalty. But the truth, as always, probably sits somewhere in the middle. Blake's not evil. She's just calculated. Taylor's not a victim. She's just strategic. Both women are power players in a system that rewards optics over authenticity. And this, right here, is the real Hollywood friendship paradox, when support becomes performance, and performance becomes survival. But still, the timing of those vanished posts and PR slip-ups couldn't have been worse. Because in the era of digital detectives, you can't erase without trace. And fans were already 2 steps ahead. By the time mainstream outlets like news and people cautiously touched the topic, the online narrative was fully formed. Blake's playing games. Evidence is missing, and Taylor knows. Whether that's true or not didn't matter anymore. The perception had already hardened into fact. And in Hollywood, once the internet decides your story, there's no editing it back. When a missing evidence story caught fire, Hollywood went into panic mode. Blake's publicist was reportedly making frantic calls, trying to spin the narrative before it got out of control. But the internet doesn't forget, and it definitely doesn't forgive, especially not Taylor's fan base, who basically operate like the CIA with Wi-Fi. By now, everyone was dissecting every micro-interaction between the two women. The way Blake avoided eye contact at events, the tone of Taylor's Instagram captions, the absence of tags, the carefully cropped group photos. It was like decoding a Cold War message hidden in celebrity selfies. The energy between them shifted, and even the most neutral fans started to feel it. Once that trust cracks, it never really glues back the same way. And in the glossy world of Hollywood, cracks show faster than light bounces off a diamond necklace. Blake's team tried to hit back with a series of perfectly timed interviews. Suddenly, she was too busy to post, focusing on family, taking a step back from social media, all that predictable PR language that's meant to sound deep, but really means damage control. The irony? Every attempt to sound unbothered just made her look more guilty. That's the thing about image management. The harder you try to look chill, the more obvious it becomes that you're sweating under the surface. Fans even noticed how her interviews started recycling old quotes about female empowerment and uplifting friends. The same phrases that once sounded genuine, but now came across like hollow PR buzzwords. Meanwhile, Taylor wasn't saying a word, but she didn't need to. Her silence was louder than any statement Blake could have made. Instead, she started doing what Taylor does best, sending coded messages through aesthetics, lyrics, and timing. Her next public appearance? A surprise one. She showed up at a benefit event, radiant in an outfit fans swore was color-coordinated to reference the friendship era she once shared with Blake. But this time, she paired it with a tone of independence, a subtle visual metaphor that screamed, "I'm reclaiming my narrative." Every detail was deliberate. The jewelry, the lighting, the choice of venue. Taylor's an artist who paints her revenge in symbolism, and she was doing it flawlessly. It didn't take long before Swifties started drawing connections between the alleged rift and Taylor's upcoming releases. One track previewed in a leaked studio clip had fans convinced it was about betrayal disguised as loyalty. A friend who used her image but walked away when things got inconvenient. The lyrics weren't direct, but in Taylor's world, that's the art of war. You never name your enemy. You just write their biography in poetic form. Suddenly, the fandom's detective boards lit up again. Every lyric became a clue. Every photo became a timeline. Every silence became a weapon. Taylor was controlling the narrative without ever addressing it, while Blake was stuck reacting to rumors she couldn't outrun. The media, smelling blood, jumped in next. Headlines shifted from admiration to skepticism. Are Blake and Taylor still friends? Became why Blake Lively's silence speaks volumes. Gossip shows played old clips of them together like they were investigating a missing person case, rewinding laughter, zooming in on smiles, replaying old award show footage as if somewhere in that footage lay the moment the friendship cracked. It wasn't journalism anymore. It was cinematic analysis. But that's Hollywood. When reality gets too dull, they start editing it like a trailer. What made it worse for Blake was how every new move she made backfired. When she posted something completely unrelated, like a promo for her new movie, the comment section was flooded with Swifties asking, "Why didn't you post about Taylor?" Or "You deleted the friendship posts, didn't you?" It became a digital ghost haunting every post. Even innocent captions turned into battlegrounds for speculation. Every heart emoji was overanalyzed. Every word choice was scrutinized like evidence in a courtroom. The PR team couldn't outright the internet anymore. The script was already set. Behind closed doors, insiders claimed Taylor wasn't angry. She was disappointed. That's somehow worse. Anger burns out, but disappointment lingers. She wasn't going to call out Blake publicly, but she wasn't going to protect her either. Their once public sisterhood now lived in whispers and no-comment statements. It was a Cold War fought in silence. No unfollows, no blocks, just mutual invisibility. For Hollywood's most famous besties, that silence was the loudest headline of all. Ryan Reynolds, always the PR ninja, stayed neutral on the surface. But people noticed his sudden pivot. More business-focused posts, fewer jokes involving Taylor, and an almost eerie avoidance of any topic linking their families. It was as if both he and Blake had scrubbed Taylor from their public vocabulary. Fans speculated it wasn't just about personal fallout, it was brand strategy. Taylor's global empire thrives on authenticity, while Ryan and Blake's empire thrives on polished perfection. When those two worlds collide, one has to bend, and Blake wasn't willing to be the one doing the bending this time. But Taylor's strategic silence turned her into the public's sympathy magnet. Every camera loved her more. Every fan defended her harder. And every cryptic move, from a sudden lyric leak to a subtle unfollow by one of her circle, only made the internet more convinced that Blake had crossed a line. The more polished Blake looked, the faker she seemed. The more silent Taylor was, the more powerful she became. It was a PR paradox, and Blake's team couldn't win it. By midsummer, things hit peak weirdness. Someone spotted Blake at an event chatting briefly with a producer who used to have ties with one of Taylor's rival camps. Within hours, fan accounts were dissecting the conversation based on lip-reading clips from paparazzi footage. Even if she was just saying hello, the internet turned it into a headline. That's how fragile her image had become. Every blink was treated like a betrayal. The narrative was spiraling, and her PR team's usual tricks, vague posts, curated family photos, and empowerment hashtags, weren't working anymore. Meanwhile, Taylor continued to rise. Her music, her business ventures, her growing influence, everything was expanding, and she didn't need to drag anyone to do it. She let the silence speak. Fans started posting memes like, "When your enemy tries to play chess, but you're already playing 4D checkers." Taylor was winning the war without even firing a shot. Hollywood insiders began whispering about an invisible shift. How Taylor was subtly closing certain circles, cutting off strategic alliances, reshaping her brand boundaries. Blake, who once represented the polished side of that friendship, suddenly looked like a relic of an older era. The kind of friend that fit when everything was glossy and glamorous, but not when things got complicated. What's fascinating about this entire mess isn't the friendship fallout itself. It's what it revealed about celebrity culture. Fans don't just consume, they participate. They build timelines, collect digital evidence, and shape narratives that even PR agencies can't control. In this case, they turned two real women into characters in a live-action mystery. And once the internet writes your script, good luck rewriting it. So when people started saying Blake Lively is playing games, it wasn't just about her silence. It was about the pattern. The missing posts, the vague captions, the press-friendly interviews. To the world, it looked like she was playing both sides, protecting her image while pretending nothing had changed. But everyone knew something had. And Taylor? She didn't need to prove a thing. She just had to wait. Because in Hollywood, the truth doesn't need a microphone. It just needs time, and eventually everyone's mask slips. Blake's side, however, was spiraling. Her brand, once built on the perfect mom, perfect friend, perfect life image, started to feel hollow. Not because she wasn't doing her job, but because her authenticity had been questioned. Hollywood runs on illusion, but when that illusion cracks, even perfection starts to look suspicious. Every smile, every family photo, every happy caption now felt curated. The public started asking, is she acting off-screen too? That's the curse of being too polished in a world that's obsessed with rawness. You end up looking unreal. Ryan Reynolds, usually the witty fixer of any PR problem, couldn't meme his way out of this one. His silence was loud. He stopped making those subtle Taylor jokes that fans loved. No playful comments, no mentions. It was almost eerie how both he and Blake had seemingly wiped Taylor from their public identity, as if their PR team issued an internal no-Swift zone memo. But by trying to scrub the connection, they only highlighted it more. Because you can't erase history without leaving fingerprints, and those missing traces became the story themselves. Then, as if scripted by fate, Taylor released a new single. It wasn't overtly about friendship or betrayal, but the metaphors hit hard. Lyrics about mirrors cracking, hands that used to hold but now conceal, and a smile rehearsed too long. Swifties didn't even need confirmation. They knew exactly who it was about. The fandom lit up like wildfire. Think pieces flooded YouTube. TikToks with dramatic captions like "Taylor finally addressed the fake friend" racked up millions of views. Blake's PR team reportedly held emergency meetings, debating whether to address it or let it pass. They chose silence, which, ironically, only confirmed the suspicion. Hollywood insiders whispered that the two women's teams had completely cut professional ties. No collaborations, no joint appearances, not even courtesy invites to mutual events. The message was clear. The bridge wasn't just burned, it was demolished, buried, and the ashes trademarked. Blake was quietly excluded from certain A-list gatherings that Taylor's circle dominated, while Taylor, unfazed, was rising higher than ever. The Grammys, the VMAs, brand deals, billion-dollar tours. Her empire expanded, and she didn't look back. The contrast between them became symbolic. Taylor represented evolution, authenticity, self-awareness, the kind of reinvention that makes audiences feel seen. Blake represented image maintenance, the fear of imperfection that keeps celebrities trapped in their own branding. One was organic, the other was manufactured, and the world always roots for the one who bleeds. Fans felt Taylor's transparency. They didn't feel Blake's perfection anymore. That emotional disconnect is fatal in an era where relatability sells more than beauty. The phrase "Blake's playing games" became more than a theory. It became a cultural commentary. Podcasts, YouTubers, and even talk show hosts began discussing it not just as gossip, but as a case study in celebrity authenticity. Is Blake Lively's brand too curated to be real? Did her friendship with Taylor expose Hollywood's fake sisterhood? Suddenly, the narrative had evolved beyond personal drama. It had turned into a reflection of how fame manipulates relationships. Every influencer who'd ever posted a supportive caption suddenly looked over their shoulder. The illusion of friendship in Hollywood had been broken, and Blake's story was the perfect example of why people no longer trust the smiles they see online. But here's the twist. Taylor didn't need revenge. Her success was the revenge. She didn't throw shade, she threw silence. She didn't post cryptic captions, she posted achievements. While Blake's team was patching holes, Taylor was breaking records. Every accomplishment of hers subtly reinforced the message. I don't need to expose you. The truth is exposing itself. That's the kind of poetic justice Hollywood rarely gives, but Taylor had mastered it. By the end of the year, even Blake's most loyal fans began to feel the fatigue. The missing posts, the neutral interviews, the over-controlled persona, it all added up to one thing: exhaustion. People moved on, preferring the raw chaos of realness that Taylor embodied. And Blake? She was left playing catch-up in a game she once thought she controlled. The world had shifted, and her PR perfection didn't fit the new narrative anymore. It's not that Blake Lively was canceled, she wasn't. But she was quietly rebranded by the public as something worse, untrustworthy. Not malicious, not evil, just insincere. And that's a stain no PR strategy can polish out. The trust she'd built through years of relatability had eroded, and all it took was silence, a few missing posts, and a pop star's quiet refusal to play along. Taylor, meanwhile, stood exactly where she always thrives, in the eye of the storm, calm, composed, and 3 moves ahead. She didn't need to remind anyone who she was. She just kept doing what she does best, turning life's chaos into art. The cameras still followed her, the crowds still screamed her name, and her legacy grew while the drama faded. And that's the irony of it all. In a world obsessed with appearances, the woman accused of playing games lost the game because she cared too much about appearances. The one who stayed silent, authentic, and strategic ended up controlling the story without saying a single word. That's Hollywood in a nutshell. Loyalty is seasonal, evidence is editable, and SI. And silence. Silence is the loudest confession of all.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe my channel Corevanta for more updates. With Sardar Zuriat Abbas Khan Lashari.